Would you believe that in Korea, having an affair could literally land you in jail up to as late as 2015? Or that just to go to school, girls were sat down and forced to literally chop off all of their hair up until as late as 2010? Some of these laws sound like something out of a dystopian drama, but they were real, and some of us are still haunting us today. In this video, we are diving into the most shocking, bizarre, and flat-out oppressive laws in recent Korean history. Some were based on the patriarchy, others were based on control, and some, well, they're just unbelievable. So let me tell you a story. It's 2008, outside of the Seoul Central District Court. The press is swarming. The air is thick and humid. Flashes pop like fireworks. Reporters push against each other, shouting her name. She steps out of her car. Sunglasses, a black colored blouse, crisp and stiff, black pencil skirt, her face calm but her hands trembling. It is Ok So-ri, a glamorous actress once beloved for her poise and elegance. Now she's the center of a legal firestorm. Why? Because she's being charged with adultery. Her husband, who's a broadcaster, Park Chul, is pressing charges under Korea's adultery law, Kantongje. The accusation? Affairs with two men, an opera singer and an Italian chef named Claudio. Was that right? I don't speak Italian, just Spanish. Claudio. Italian. Whom she reportedly met while she was filming overseas. The punishment? Up to 2 years in prison. And the court sides with her husband. She is sentenced to 8 months in prison, but luckily she didn't have to serve that prison sentence. She was just put on probation for 2 years. But her name is splashed across every paper, all of her roles canceled, her privacy gone. So Ok So-ri was a popular actress during the 90s. She really fit the beauty standard at that time. It's so different from now. And she was the star of things like Kuro Arirang, watercolor painting on a rainy day, and Hero's Diary. Luckily, she didn't get sent to jail because the court also determined that her husband was also at fault for the divorce because of how he treated her, and their marriage was loveless. And at that time, it was really hard to get a divorce. So I guess she just decided to cheat instead. Now, I am not for adultery at all. I think it's horrible. Would never do it myself. But I don't think it should be a criminal offense. But from 1953 to 2015, adultery in Korea was not just shameful, it was criminal. The only issue with that law is that most of the people that were prosecuted tended to be women, just because husbands sort of used it as a tool to get back at their wives. And then also at that time, men's infidelity was a little bit more glossed over. You know, in Korea, there's a lot of room salons, a lot of PR, prostitution, people paying for punani. So women were not likely to prosecute their partners. And there's also a social stigma here where women's transgression of cheating is much bigger than men's. So a lot of women didn't actually pursue legal action against their partners. But thankfully, finally, in 2015, I was in Korea because I came to Korea in 2012. So I remember when this happened. And I remember being shocked, like it was illegal because everybody at my school was talking about it. In 2015, the Constitutional Court ruled the Kantongje to be unconstitutional. They said it violated the 성적 자기 결정권, which is just mean your right to just pursue sexual freedom. But it is still heavily stigmatized here in Korea, which I think is good. We should never remove the stigma away from adultery. Please, let's not do that on the side of both men and women. In your marriage, if your partner cheats, you can actually sue them and the person they cheated on for upwards of $30,000. And they will be at fault for the divorce. You are allowed to divorce in that case as long as you do find solid evidence that they did cheat. But it also sucks because people like Ok So-ri, because what she did was a criminal and illegal act, when they got a divorce, their daughter was taken away from her. And in most cases, when the men had the wife prosecuted for cheating, the children were taken away from her. And Ok So-ri was ordered to pay her husband 87 million won, which is about 75 to 80,000 US dollars. The correct number will be on the screen. But I don't know. What do you think? Should it stay illegal or not? I want to hear your opinions down below. Let's talk about it. Now, this next one is gonna make your blood boil. Let me paint a picture for you. So imagine it's summer. You're in a tiny government office in Busan. There's a rusted fan that's buzzing weakly in the corner, blowing hot air more than cooling it. In Korean government offices, there's rules on how cold the AC can be in order to save electricity so they be hot. Girl. Back on topic, a woman walks up to the counter. Her son clutches her hand so sweetly, and he looks a little bit confused because he's only kindergarten age. The clerk sits behind a thick wooden desk. Paperwork is piled high. There's fluorescent lights flickering above. And the woman goes to hand over the forms to register her child for kindergarten. Her hand is slightly shaking, but she puts them on the desk. And then the clerk looks down and frowns, like she just smelled some stank, like the stank face was real. Where's the father's name? The clerk asks. The woman blinks, her throat tightens. She says, 저 이혼했어. I'm divorced and I'm the child's legal guardian. But under Korea's old registry law called 호주제, that doesn't matter. Because from 1953 to 2008, every Korean household had to be listed under a male head, either father or husband. A woman could not be her family's legal head. She couldn't register her kids. She couldn't represent her household in any way. Even after a divorce, the children stayed under the father's name. Mothers had to contact the fathers and request special permission just to move the kids. It was humiliating, frustrating, and often impossible. Feminist groups fought for it for years. They called it institutional patriarchy. And I agree, that definitely is some patriarchy. Sometimes when people in like America claim about patriarchy nowadays, I'd be like, guys, this was going on in Korea up until 2005 when the Constitutional Court ruled Hojujae to be unconstitutional. By 2008, it was finally abolished and Korean women could legally stand as the heads of their families. And oftentimes during a divorce, sometimes the husband would sort of use it against their wife and make it hard for them to do anything because they would have to physically be present so that the wife could prove that, hey, I'm the guardian of this kid. And it's generally considered that kids are the property of the husband's family with the husband's name. And even if you did get your partner to change your kid's last name to yours and to go under your family registry, the kid could often be teased in school. Like there are many instances of that where they're like, ha ha ha, you don't have the same name as your dad. Like just that kind of societal pressure and societal norm of kids belong to dad, not to mom. Mom is just like an accessory that joins the dad's family. Up until 2008, that is insane. I was already in college at that time. Think about that. Thank God that was abolished because that literally sounds like a nightmare. And it's also one of the reasons why women were not really trying to get divorces back then. Now, I'm not somebody who's just like, anything goes wrong, get a divorce, get a divorce, get a divorce. But there are situations, especially if the man is being abusive or just the situation with the in-laws is not good, where your mental health is suffering and you do actually need to get out. But because of things and laws like this, a lot of women were just sort of staying and suffering through it. So I am sort of glad that laws and rules are changing to make things a little bit easier. But the downside is that there are a lot more divorces nowadays because just everything surrounding divorce has become a little bit easier. There's still no fault divorce, so you still have to go to a court of law and your case has to apply under one of the 6 reasons for divorce. So people are not able to just say, I don't love you anymore, I'm gonna get a divorce. So it's kind of like good and bad because I know people who really needed to get divorces because they were in abusive situations, but it was a bit harder for them because they had to stay a little bit and collect evidence. It's not just like, hey, this is happening, I want to get a divorce. It's like she literally had to stay, collect evidence, photos, videos, all of her bruises, going to the hospital and whatnot, and then go through a lengthy court process to go to divorce. So it's still very difficult to get it, but I am glad that, you know, women can sort of get out of those situations now. But I don't know, I think people in Korea still don't take divorce very lightly, and they typically only get divorced in serious situations. So I'm glad that the law is sort of more on people's side who would like to do that. However, I am sad that there is more divorce. However, every case that I know of here, like if somebody in Korea decides to get a divorce, trust me, there's a big reason. I just really hope they don't get to the point where they're just willy-nilly having divorces like I feel like we have in the West. It's a little bit too willy-nilly, like, I just don't love you anymore, goodbye. Like I think that's a bit much, like work on it. But anyway, I mumble on to the next one. This next one is not as infuriating as the previous one, but still pretty infuriating, and it is called 학교 두발 규제. And I'm gonna describe it to you. Picture this. A teenage boy is in a crowded classroom. You hear the sound of clippers buzzing. The teacher's hand forcefully pushes his head down, but he doesn't fight back. He doesn't cry. But in his whole life, he never forgot the humiliation of the teacher forcefully cutting his hair, just buzzing it off in class. This is what school looked like for a lot of Korean students in the past, thanks to the laws known as 두발 규제, which are the hair rules that they had in school. And if you were a girl, there also were rules. Your hair had to be above your earlobes. Yeah, that is this short. no bangs, no dye, and boys were only allowed to have crew cuts. They called it supposomori, like sports hair, above the ears. That is wild to me. Like, I could see it like being like maybe down to here or like down to here. Like, we don't want hair all the way down to the butt, but God, they literally had these little tiny shortcuts. That would kill me. I wouldn't go to school. Then again, if you have afro hair and your hair is afroed out, it would be that short anyway, but your hair could secretly be longer. Just scrunch it up. Okay. All right, I deal with it. But I know that happens in a lot of countries. I have a friend who's from Rwanda, and her dad put her in an all-girls school where they had to have just a short, shaved, buzzed hair. And she's like, she cried when she went there and they buzzed all her hair off. Girl, I would too. Why do they do that in schools? Apparently, it's to get people to be compliant. It's more about obedience, about control. I guess shave off a girl's hair. She's defeated. She just goes along with whatever you want and is fully obedient. I don't know. But this went on for decades in Korea from the 1960s. It wasn't until 2010 that Gyeonggi province passed a human rights ordinance called 학생 인권 조례, which is, you know, gave the students to choose the right to do their own hair. And then soon after, Seoul followed. So Seoul wasn't the first place to do it. It was first Gyeonggi-do, which is the province right around Seoul. In the recent years, every single school didn't abide by those laws, but up until 2010, there were still some schools which had that short hair law. So a lot of people that I know that are my age went to schools like that where they had to have short hair. You guys know recently I shared a story with you about a woman whose in-laws were crazy because they hated her super long hair here in Korea. And the reason why she grew her hair out so long past her butt was because she went to one of those schools where her hair always had to stay above her ears. So she said, you know what? When I graduate and I go to college, I'm gonna grow my hair down to my butt. And she did. And then her in-laws hated it and always told her to cut it. It's too long. It's too long. So her sister-in-law came up behind her and just snipped her hair one night. Crazy in-law stories. Anyway, I'll link that video down below if you want to hear about all the crazy stuff that in-laws were like doing to people, because that video has like a compilation of a couple of them. Crazy. Anyway, but not only in the past were they policing what students wore, but apparently in Korea in the 1970s, there was a thing about men having long hair and women wearing short skirts. Just imagine you're walking through Myeongdong in Seoul in the 1970s. You styled your hair a little longer. You're feeling fresh. You're feeling yourself. And then suddenly a police officer stops you. Not for stealing, not for jaywalking. He pulls out a ruler and measures your bangs. They are too long, so you are taken to a local police station and they shave your head right then and there. This was happening across Korea under Park Chung-hee's regime. The policy was just called 단속, which is a crackdown on decadent Western influence for men, I guess. Long hair was forbidden. They were like, none of that hippie crap here. And for women, your skirts could be no more than 17 centimeters above the knee. So at that time, police literally carried measuring tapes around and women were stopped on the street. Their length of skirt was measured and they were told to go home and change. Some of them were shamed in public. Again, it wasn't about just public decency. It was more about control and fear. I don't know, but there's a whole bunch of photos that still exist. One of the most famous one is this photo of a man in Myeongdong with his head down and the police are literally holding a ruler to his bangs. Proof that even hair could somehow be criminal during that time. So the next one is just a little bit sad because it blocked people from having real love, and it's called 봉광 결혼 금지, and I'm going to describe it to you. Let's go back to the 90s. Let's say there's a young couple in Seoul. They both have a last name Kim. They fall in love. They're not related, not even distant cousins, but they share the same ancestral origin, Kim-hae. So that makes them both part of the Kim-hae Kim clan. And under Korean law, that means that they cannot legally marry. This was the 봉광 결혼 금지, the ban on marriage between people with the same surname and origin. It didn't matter if you were strangers or nobody in your family or your grandma or anybody was even distantly related. If your family roots matched on paper, the government said no. So tens of thousands of couples lived in a sort of legal limbo. They moved in together, had children together, but couldn't marry. Some were actually shunned, and others couldn't even register their kids at all because of a technicality. In 1997, the Constitutional Court ruled the law unconstitutional, thankfully, and in 2005, it was officially repealed after 50 years. In 2005. Now, if you know anything about Korea, you know that there's literally only a handful of last names. Like, what's it, Kim, Lee, Moon, some other ones, Na, Pak. There's not that many last names, so I do understand why maybe historically we needed to have that, because you want to make sure there's no incest happening. You want to make sure that people are born happy and healthy. Like Korea is very like, we're blocking incest, okay? Nobody is getting with anybody. No cousins, marrying cousins, no, nobody. Everybody has to be from a different area, which I think is good and something that a lot of countries actually didn't do. In the past, I think we definitely needed that. You meet someone from a village, you know, we didn't have phones. If you had the same last name, just assume you could be related, especially because back then people were having like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids, you know, but nowadays we don't need that. Like we're all connected with phone, internet. People typically know everyone in their family. So finally, in 2005, many couples that were just living together under the radar were finally able to register. So it was great, but it's just insane that it took up until 2005 for that to happen. But anywho, so now we're going to jump a little bit later. We're going to jump to the 2000s and we're going to talk about the video game laws, the Cinderella laws, which many of you might know, but I figured some of you might not know, so I'm going to throw it in here. But let's say it's the 2000s. It's almost midnight. A 15-year-old boy sits at his computer and he's locked into a game of LOL, League of Legends. They just call it LOL in Korea. And then suddenly the screen freezes, like while he's in the middle of a game. The system logs him out. Why? Because it's 12:01 a.m. and under the shutdown제, which is shutdown law, he's not allowed to play anymore. In 2011, Korea passed a law banning anyone under the age of 16 from playing online games between midnight and 6 a.m. The goal? To stop gaming addiction. But the reality, teenagers found loopholes anyway. Some people stole their parents' resident numbers. Others hacked IDs. One mom had to apologize to 3 different game companies after her son used her info. Like, it became a game in and of itself to just get online anyway. But in 2021, the law was repealed. The government decided it was better to let parents set the rules, you know, for themselves and their kids, not the servers. Computer servers, that is, not restaurant servers. I think this one's actually a good one just because kids, especially in school, like shouldn't be staying up that late anyway. Young kids need to be in bed at a decent time. Like sleep is just as important as food when it comes to brain development and growth, okay? Should not be online super late playing video games. But yeah, I do think that it is a little bit of state overreach to have that ban on you're a kid, you can't do it. But then at the same time, there are some parents who are not really policing their kids that well. So I guess like if the parents aren't policing their kids, then maybe we should. I definitely think young kids need to have those rules set in place to not be up late, just in general, playing video games or not, like bedtime at a decent time for prepubescent kids. Okay, go to bed. And the last law we're going to talk about is a law that shocked even some Koreans when they found out. Until 2021, abortion in South Korea was technically illegal under a law called naktaeje. Even in cases of assault, women often face prosecution and doctors could be arrested for performing abortions. Like there was this one heartbreaking case where a 16-year-old girl became pregnant because she was abused, you know, and so a doctor decided to help her, but he was sentenced to prison and the girl was also charged too. Activists fought for years. Women took to the streets holding signs that said, you know, my body, my choice. In Korean, you know, 내 몸은 내 것이다, like my body is my own. And finally, in January 2021, the law was abolished. It was a landmark moment for reproductive rights in Korea. But this one's kind of hard. I do think if you were assaulted and whatnot, that you should be definitely, you know, allowed to have one. But at the same time, 2 wrongs don't make a right. I am someone who's sort of in the middle on this issue. It's like, I don't think it should be used as a form of birth control. Actually, when I was a bit younger, I knew people who sort of used it like birth control and they were literally having like 5, 6, 7 abortions. And I think that is wrong. Like get it together at that point in time. So those people, I stopped being friends with them. I'm sorry. I'm judging you. If you have a 6, 7 abortions, like get it together. Please. But I do think definitely in cases of assault, that should be something that you are allowed to do. I think there needs to be some happy medium and definitely they need to block it off at a certain amount of weeks. And in places where they don't allow it, I think they definitely need more support for the mothers and whatnot. I don't know. It's a very sensitive issue and I think we got to find some sort of gray area in between. So I'm one of those people who's a bit old fashioned. I think it's best to just be married before you have kids. So just be very, very careful and don't do a lot of stuff that could lead to kids before you want to have kids with somebody. That's just how I am. But at the same time, I know that everybody's not old fashioned. You're not an old fogey like me. So I want to hear what you guys think. Let's talk about it down below. Don't be getting into like super heated arguments and yelling at people and like cussing, and just share your opinion down below. Respectfully, please. You guys are great people on this channel, so I know we'll have respectful discourse about everything down here. But yes, in 2021, Korea officially legalized abortion. abortion. Tell me what you think down below about any of the things that we have been talking about and discussing today. And let me know if you want to make more videos about this, or if you've heard about some Korean laws or interesting things in Korean history that you just want me to share on this channel. One of my favorite parts about these videos is reading you guys' comments down below to hear your stories or anecdotes and thoughts and everything, because I think one of the great things in life is just learning, hearing new perspectives, and growing and changing the way that you think about stuff too. And if you like this video, please subscribe to my YouTube page, guys. Subscribing is completely free. You just gotta click that little button right there. Just click it for me, please. Thank you. If you like this video and you'd like to see more videos, please subscribe to my YouTube page. It is down below. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, like me on Facebook, and I will see ya.